remember the days we saw purple haze. 1 and 1, and 1 is 3. Hey, hey, baby, what you do to me?
The fact is that anything you say is going to be used against you, and you have absolutely no obligation to make such statements. You should never confess to a marijuana-related offense, and I hope it goes without saying that you should never inform on any other human being who are non-violent victims. Finally, one of your other constitutional rights which you should exercise is that precious First Amendment right of association. If you are not already a member of this association, a member of NORML, please join. Please join with us. You may feel that as one individual you cannot bring about change, but I guarantee you that working with the rest of us, we will bring about change. This conference already is shaping up to be one of, if not the most exciting conference that we've ever been privileged to sponsor here in the nation's capital. The people I've already met and talked with yesterday and last night have given me cause to believe we're going to hear some of the most exciting presentations that we have ever heard at any drug policy reform conference. As Keith said, we're going to be hearing from experts in every field associated with this issue, including doctors, lawyers, journalists, and professionals in every field related to this issue. There have been some extremely interesting and exciting developments related to marijuana reform during the past year. I'm just going to touch on a few of those during these few minutes. Since last we met, of course, the issue of medical marijuana has moved forward substantially. In those states which have already passed medical marijuana laws, the fight goes on to implement those laws. A very important fight to give meaning to the statutes that have now been passed by the voters in at least 6 states and the District of Columbia. To make those laws meaningful is going to require continued vigilance and continued work on behalf of all of us. And of course, in November, the state of Maine added its voice to voters across the country who have endorsed the concept that doctors and patients should have access to medical marijuana. The fact is that today our government tells us that we can trust doctors and patients to responsibly use drugs which include cocaine, morphine, barbiturates, amphetamines, and hundreds of drugs which are truly potentially dangerous and addictive. Yet, that same government tells us that we cannot trust doctors and their patients with the relatively harmless herb, marijuana. That policy is irrational, and it will eventually fall, and our position will prevail. Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico has given us all cause to hope that even other elected officials may eventually recognize the insanity of drug prohibition, the counterproductive, irrational approach to drug prohibition which has resulted in our nation imprisoning more of our citizens than any other nation on earth, except perhaps occasionally Russia. And I think that that is a scandal which should be the focus of continuing national attention. And yet we rarely hear that. We rarely hear in the mainstream press Americans reminded of the fact that our nation imprisons so many of our citizens, and the primary contributing factor to the dramatic increase in the imprisonment of our own people in recent decades has been the enforcement of drug prohibition, and primarily the enforcement of marijuana prohibition. We must put a stop to this insanity. The scandal which has surfaced in recent weeks involving the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy is one which I think will also ultimately result in very positive reforms. The fact is that the National Drug Control Policy suffered what should be a major embarrassment when it was revealed that they're spending our tax money to bribe national television networks to insert propaganda messages into the entertainment network programming. It's surely a small step from there to inserting that same message into the info entertainment programming, which disguises itself as news coverage, and even that which claims to be true news coverage is surely next. I am pleased to tell you that NORML has filed a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission, alleging that this practice violates federal law, and we intend to aggressively pursue One of the other dismaying developments in the past year is the fact that our Congress has passed an amendment to the Higher Education Act which says that if one has been convicted in a state or federal court of the possession of even a very small amount of marijuana or any other illegal drug, that that person will lose eligibility for federal education assistance, lose eligibility for federal loans, for federal grants, or for work-study assistance for higher education. What more counterproductive idea could these politicians come up with than to deny someone the right to further their education? How could even the most staunch prohibitionists rationally support the idea